Hawks are some of the most efficient aerial hunters on Earth. They combine sharp vision, powerful talons, and flight control precise enough to grab moving prey in midair. But what if hawks could carry adult pets? Imagine fully grown cats, medium-sized dogs, animals people walk every day, let roam their homes, and rarely think of as vulnerable from above, suddenly light enough to be lifted off the ground. What would that actually mean? Before this turns into pure panic, we need to slow the idea down and define it properly. When we say carry adult pets, how heavy are we actually talking about? A 5-kilogram cat is very different from a 20-kilogram dog, and biology cares deeply about that difference. If hawks really had this ability, where would it even happen? Urban neighborhoods, suburban parks, or only in open landscapes where they already hunt? And most importantly, would this turn hawks into a genuine threat to everyday human life? Or would it just sound terrifying while being far less dramatic in reality? To answer any of that, we have to step away from viral videos and look at the physics and biology that actually limit what hawks can do in the air. To understand why this idea feels both scary and oddly unrealistic, we need to look at what hawks are actually built to do. Most hawk species weigh between 1 and 2 kilograms, with wingspans optimized for soaring, sudden dives, and short bursts of force, not sustained heavy lifting. Their prey usually falls well below their own body mass, often rodents, small birds, or reptiles light enough to be pinned rather than carried long distances. Even the larger hawks that look intimidating in flight rely on gravity-assisted strikes, not brute strength. Unlike birds that specialize in carrying loads, hawks have hollow bones designed to minimize weight, not reinforce lifting power. Add gravity into the equation, and things get boring very fast. Lifting mass scales poorly, muscle strength does not increase fast enough to compensate, and flight stability collapses long before the hawk ever leaves the ground. In other words, hawks are aerodynamic precision tools, not flying forklifts, and biology is very strict about that distinction. So if hawks suddenly had the ability to carry adult pets, where would this actually break reality first? The answer is flight mechanics. Even a large species like the red-tailed hawk already operates close to its aerodynamic limits during takeoff, and lifting something heavier than its own body mass would require either absurdly enlarged flight muscles or wings so large they would lose maneuverability. That means urban liftoffs from rooftops or trees would be clumsy, noisy, and extremely exposed, not silent snatch-and-go moments. Movement would also be slow and unstable. Carrying a struggling animal shifts the center of mass, disrupts airflow, and forces constant correction, turning the hawk into a wobbling target rather than a sleek predator. This sounds terrifying at first, but here is the dull science twist. A hawk struggling to stay airborne is far more vulnerable to injury, exhaustion, and predation itself. As for danger, this would look less like a new apex predator and more like a risky, inefficient behavior that biology usually weeds out quickly. The real surprise is not that pets could be carried, but that doing so would be so energetically expensive and evolutionarily stupid that it would almost never be worth the effort. This is where the situation quietly stops being about hawks and starts being about us. If hawks could occasionally lift adult pets, human behavior would shift faster than the birds ever could. Pet owners would demand control measures, tracking systems, deterrent devices, and probably hawk-proof vests for animals that already refuse to wear collars. Cities would debate whether this is a wildlife issue, a public safety issue, or somehow both, while experts argue over liability when a wild animal does exactly what it evolved to do. The irony is that most proposed solutions would be impractical or counterproductive. Relocating hawks disrupts ecosystems, overprotecting pets increases stress and confinement, and trying to manage aerial predators in open skies quickly becomes expensive and ineffective. The real problem would not be widespread attacks, but perception, rare incidents amplified into constant fear. Humans are exceptionally bad at accepting low-probability risks, especially when those risks feel random and uncontrollable, and a predator that comes from above hits that nerve perfectly. In the end, the conflict would reveal less about hawk aggression and more about how uncomfortable humans become when nature ignores our assumptions about safety. The idea of hawks carrying adult pets sounds like a clear escalation of danger, but once the biology settles in, the fear starts to lose its edge. The behavior would be rare, inefficient, and costly for the bird, far more risky than it looks from the ground. What feels frightening is not the actual threat level, but the violation of an assumption people are deeply attached to, the belief that certain parts of daily life are simply off limits to wild animals. Pets feel safe because they are familiar, not because nature has agreed to leave them alone. If anything, this scenario suggests that making hawks stronger would not create a new predator problem, but a new human anxiety problem. And biology, as usual, would quietly push back against anything that wastes too much energy for too little reward. So maybe the real takeaway is not that hawks should never be that strong, but that it is probably better they are not. A world where every movement overhead feels suspicious would be exhausting, even if nothing actually happens most of the time. But then again, hawks are only one kind of aerial hunter. And if one species could suddenly lift more than it should, what if it wasn't the only one looking down from the sky?